Welcome, my confession viewers, to another captivating video. Today, we have an intriguing confession in store for you. It revolves around a mother who finds herself frustrated as her son reminds her of her ex-partner. What specific traits or characteristics does the son possess that trigger these emotions? Is it his physical appearance, or perhaps his way of speaking? And, most importantly, how does the little boy react to this underlying tension? All of these questions and more will be addressed as we dive into this heartfelt confession. But remember, to ensure the utmost anonymity, we have altered the names and locations involved. Without further ado, let's delve straight into this gripping story and discover the complexities hidden within.
It was never something I dwelled on until my best friend confronted me about it. She insisted that I pay attention to how I treat Dan, my nearly 8-year-old son. When I asked her to explain, deep down, I knew she was right. I can be an exasperating mother to him. Sometimes, he becomes the unfortunate recipient of my frustrations, reminding me so much of my ex-husband that it spills over onto him. My friend, Saad, pointed it out sharply. "Are you aware of what you're saying?" she snapped when I was angry with Dan. Her interference only made me angrier. Who was she to offer her opinion, especially in front of Dan? Later, when I sent him to his room, she continued to address the issue. Irritated, I wasn't receptive to her perspective. It's easy to criticize when you have a perfect family and no worries. My situation is different. 3 years ago, Mike and I went through a breakup. We were married, and Dan was just 5 years old. It made sense for Dan to stay with me, one of the few things we didn't argue about. Mike got himself into trouble. I won't go into the details, but he wasn't ready to raise a 5-year-old boy. To put it mildly, he couldn't handle the responsibility. He was still a child himself. I noticed that Dan suffered from the separation. You might think that at his young age, he wouldn't understand it fully, but unfortunately, he did. He became restless, demanding, and even a bit rebellious. Back then, I believe I couldn't provide him with the love and attention he needed. I was consumed by my own depression, overwhelmed with sadness, and felt like my future was crumbling like a house of cards. It wasn't until I met my current boyfriend, Alexis, that I began to see a return to peace and an improvement in my relationship with Dan. Being alone is challenging for me, and Alexis brings balance and happiness into my life, which positively affects everyone. Thankfully, he gets along well with Dan too. My interactions with Mike remain difficult, but we can manage to maintain some semblance of normality. After all, we share a child, so we'll always have to deal with each other. Dan occasionally spends a weekend with Mike, and it goes reasonably well based on mutual agreement. However, as they spend more time together, I've noticed Dan picking up certain things from his father: words, mannerisms, reactions to situations. He's starting to resemble Mike more and more. Initially, I didn't want to acknowledge it, or I thought it was just in my head, but it's becoming undeniable. The frustrating part is that after the divorce and all the misery with Mike, I've developed a sort of allergy to anything related to him. And to discover that my child says and does things that get under my skin, it's an odd realization. I find myself thinking, come on, I'm his mother. I do everything for him. Why doesn't he adopt my traits? Even though he only sees his father once a month, is that enough to completely influence his character? Saad's words made me reflect, even though I didn't admit it at the time. I spent nights contemplating it and later discussed it with Alexis. He agreed with her. Sometimes I react too strongly or angrily towards our son, and hearing that truth wasn't easy. You know, he said, you can divorce your husband, but you can never divorce your son. He was right. Mike had a personality that was completely incompatible with mine, and that's why things fell apart. But one thing I must prevent is any discord with Dan. He's still young, and I have to set a good example for him, hoping he'll adopt those qualities from me. I want him to act thoughtfully, avoiding impulsive and aimless reactions like his father. I fear that Mike will become Dan's hero, and I'll be perceived as a nag. I don't want that to happen, but I'm unsure how to prevent it.
Reacting negatively to a child because of perceived similarities with an ex can have significant consequences, leaving the child feeling unloved and misunderstood. This emotional distance may impact the child's future relationships and self-esteem. Instead of reacting with anger or shouting, it is essential for the mother to communicate calmly with her child, express her feelings, and set clear boundaries. Approaching the child with love and understanding will strengthen their bond. Open and honest communication can make the child feel loved and supported, fostering a closer relationship with the mother. Reacting angrily or hostilely will only push the child away, which is not the mother's desired outcome. The Bible reminds us, loving words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. By showing love and understanding to her child, the mother can create a nurturing environment that promotes emotional well-being. Thankfully, the mother came to this realization when her best friend pointed out her behavior. It is my hope that she took this advice to heart and will handle situations differently if her child continues to exhibit similar traits. Thank you for watching and listening to the end. If you have not yet received the Lord as your Lord and Savior, I urge you to do so before it's too late. See you at the next confession. Stay blessed and be a source of goodness to everyone around you.